Tropical cyclone activity still possible in the Western Pacific as these areas of interest struggle to develop. On today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for July 18th. Well, would you believe we still don't have any tropical cyclones active? A few have been trying to form all across the Pacific Ocean in the last few days. So far, none of them have managed it. Well, there's still a chance in the Western Pacific especially for some areas of interest to develop into some potentially strong tropical storms or typhoons. Well, on day 48 of the Atlantic hurricane season, I'm pleased to say there's no areas of interest. We're still recovering after Beryl after all. So it is a pleasantly quiet basin right now with just a small amount of cloud off the US East Coast. On day 62 of Eastern Pacific hurricane season, both of those areas of interest that we've been monitoring down to 10%. So it really appears as though we're not going to get that development that it was looking quite possible at times on the model runs. And so the Eastern Pacific has let us down again. In the Western Pacific, we still have two areas of interest, 30% now entering the South China Sea, that one we've been monitoring through the Philippines, and now 50% for this area of interest, Invest 92W near Palau, expected to move north-northwestwards past the Philippines and on towards Taiwan and southern Japan. No areas of interest in the North Indian Ocean, but there is a surface low developing there off the coast of India and will be moving inland relatively soon within the next 24 to 36 hours. Doesn't look like it will become a tropical cyclone and we haven't marked it. Southwest Indian Ocean there, a few clouds across the lower tropical zones, but in general it's a very quiet basin right now with no areas of interest and none expected. So let's take a look at where the action is right now then. It's Invest 92W and it doesn't look very good on satellite imagery at the moment, but it is showing significant signs on the model runs of developing. So that's why we're watching this one right now. It's 301 kilometers north of Palau, 1002 east of Surigao City in the Philippines, 1052 from Tacloban, 1553 from Manila, and 2127 from Taipei. It could end up heading towards Taiwan in the next 7 days, probably getting there by early to midweek next week. How strong will it be though? That's a big question mark right now. Let's take a look at how these systems look on satellite imagery. We've got the one on the left there, which is showing a lot of cloud cover, definitely, but organization is a little bit poor. Has a chance of becoming a weak tropical depression or storm. And then there's that other system, 92W on the right-hand side there. We're just switching around these images so you can see both of them. And there it is again on the infrared. Still throwing up a bit of convection there, but it hasn't looked very good up until now. And things may be about to change though. Well, here's the Eastern Pacific. If you look carefully on the top side there, you can see that little area of interest. That's that 10% now that's moving off towards the west-northwest. We'll look at that again in a moment. But here's a close-up view of 91W, which was the one that was moving through the Philippines. Looked like that would form at one point. Now chances are getting a little bit lower. Entering the South China Sea, certainly throwing up huge amounts of convection at times. That will be producing some heavy rainfall and flash flooding, possibly over the Metro Manila area, and then heading out over the South China Sea there, where it could become a tropical depression as it heads generally towards Hainan or possibly towards Hong Kong. A few more viewpoints there, and then we will cross over to the next system, which I think was 92. No, we're actually looking at the Eastern Pacific there, 92E. That's that system that's out over the open Eastern Pacific, and you can see there that wind shear has really blown away that convection in those last few hours as it slowly moves west-northwestwards. The convection's moving in a completely different way, northeastwards, and so this system's race is pretty much run. Now this is Invest 92W, passing by Yap there and now north of Palau. This was a little bit earlier on, not looking quite so good, but that convection started to blow up towards the end there. Looks like the center point of the system is a little bit to the east of that convection, and so it's got a little bit of work to do before it starts to get a better chance of developing, but right now we're giving it a 50% chance. Well, here's a look at the US East Coast. There's been a few little storms blowing through there along the mid-Atlantic coast, now moving out over the open Atlantic, and general low-level cloud over the central part of the US as well. The Caribbean region overnight looked like this. Not too much going on here, just a few storms blowing up over the northern Colombia and in parts of Panama. But elsewhere very little. And off the west coast of Africa, I keep making that mistake, one or two little systems pushing off the coast there, massive amounts of convection over Africa there from that system, although quite often it does completely turn itself around when it moves over water. And there's the eastern Pacific again, that other little area of interest down there, still part of the intertropical convergence zone by the looks of it, so I think it will struggle 10%. And again, a wider shot of those other systems, 92E there, and a lower one there as well. And the Western Pacific showing those two invests there as well, either side of the Philippines now. Obviously, not too much to talk about with those yet, but certainly rainfall threat being the biggest of the threats. And in the North Indian Ocean, a lot of monsoonal activity continuing there into the coast of eastern India and the Arabian Sea, looking quite similar to what we've been seeing in recent times as well. Fair bit of precipitation reaching the Arabian Peninsula as well. Well, sea surface temperatures still look good and getting better in the eastern Pacific, where they're above 30 degrees Celsius now off a large part of the coast of Mexico, off towards Guatemala as well. Well, really very warm waters off the coast of Louisiana in the northern Gulf of Mexico, extremely high values, and very warm in the western Caribbean, around the Bahamas. Open Atlantic also looking very good too. This is the western Pacific, very high temperatures there in those 20 to 30 degree north range, around the southern Japanese islands, Taiwan, northern Philippines, up to and above 32 degrees Celsius. And in the North Indian Ocean, a little area off West Bengal of 30 degrees Celsius waters. In general, it's looking pretty modest there across the Indian Ocean, but still plenty of ammunition for development. Well, this is compared to average, and you can see the Atlantic Ocean is in general very much above the average, up to 3 or 4 degrees above near the Lesser Antilles and the northern Gulf of Mexico. The Eastern Pacific looking good as well, getting better actually over time compared to average, so those temperatures looking decent, 2 to 3 degrees above at times. Off the western coast of the northern Philippines into the South China Sea, looking extremely warm there as well. That's the hot spot right now, up to 3 or 4 degrees above average. Oceanic heat content also looking very good in the Western Pacific, as it has been doing so for months now. Eastern Pacific slowly starting to catch up a little bit there off the coast of Mexico, starting to get some lighter blues in there, perhaps a little bit more energy now being visible coming to the fore. And in the Atlantic there again, the western part, the Caribbean Sea, that big long corridor of very high amounts of energy continuing. Any more storms that find themselves in that area will have a very good time, just like Beryl did. We've seen it once demonstrated already, it could happen again. But not in the next 16 days, according to the computer models, or at least the GFS. This is what it's showing for the next 5 days. The short range in the Eastern Pacific, watching that area of interest, 92E, moving off towards the west there, out of shot. And then that second system that tries to develop. Both of them ultimately fail on this model run, and pretty much every other model run as well. And that's why chances are very low. They try, but ultimately they fail. Looking to the Western Pacific then, the GFS is certainly quite keen on Invest 92W, but we've seen this all before with other systems, haven't we, in the last few days in this tropical weather bulletin sequence. You can see 91W making landfall there on Hainan, and then 92 becoming a very powerful, well, fairly powerful typhoon, probably category 2 status there, stalling off the northeastern part of the Philippines. And so it certainly develops quite quickly there in the later part of that 5-day period. But once again, big caveat to this, the GFS and other models, have they got a handle on this yet? There's still a lot of competition out in the Western Pacific for development and energy, and whether that will actually happen is a big question. Well, regardless of development, we are going to be seeing lots of rainfall over the area around the Philippine Islands, particularly over Luzon, where we could be seeing rainfall amounts approaching 36 inches there, which is 900 millimeters in the western part of Luzon, and that is associated with a band from that upcoming typhoon, if it forms as much as it does, near where the center stalls off the coast of the eastern Philippines there, 50 inches, possibly 52. That's 1300 millimeters. And then in the longer range, you can see that typhoon barreling off towards the northeast, rounding the corner around Taiwan, quite fortuitously from the storm's point of view, avoiding that landmass and mountains, and then swinging into the coast of China as a powerful Category 3 possibly there on that model run. Certainly could happen. Whether it will or not, I am still very skeptical. GFS shows a low pressure there of 938. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all of our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. And our Still Waiting for Hone t-shirt still available as well, because I think we've given up completely on actually looking out for that storm. Well, in the silly range then, it's the Western Pacific again, looking out towards the longer range, day 10 to 16. Two more systems start to pop up there and become substantial storms in the Western Pacific. One small, one very large, moving into the East China Sea, typhoon status briefly. That second one becoming a much powerful typhoon there, possibly making a run for super typhoon status, but it is a long way out compared to what we don't even know what's going to happen in the next 5 days. So I think once again, this is going to be taken with a remarkably large grain of salt. Well, what happened on this day then? It was quite a busy picture on July 18th, 1997. The Atlantic was generally a quiet year there, but one of its highlights, Hurricane Danny, which was prowling the coast of Louisiana and took a very erratic, slow track northeastwards across the coast of Alabama and Mississippi, I should say, and into Alabama, moving northeastwards. Very interesting storm Danny was. We also had Hurricane Felicia on its way up to Category 4 status, Tropical Depression 6 in the Atlantic, Tropical Depression 10 in the Westpac, and once again, South Indian Ocean had something to talk about. Tropical Depression 1S had just formed. Back to today, no such luck in terms of anything interesting to talk about, just those invests, which still they could form, but it has been a very underwhelming start to the year so far. We're obviously thankful for that, and of course Beryl has still been very bad, of course, being the system that bucks the trend. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Gamey. In the North Indian Ocean, it will be Asna, and I want to point out that we are at least 10 storms behind the slowest seasons in the satellite era at this point. A remarkable statistic that we are so far behind so far. Australian region, next name is Robin. Southwest Indian Ocean is Ansha, and in the South Pacific it's Pitta. Things could change at the drop of a hat, especially at this time of year. Keep alert, and that's it for now. We'll be back again tomorrow.
Become an ultimate fan today.